Except for the part of running a social media campaign, the most casual Gen Zs are is with their expenses. Millennials accuse us of spending a lot on fashion, food, and stuff. Do you also get to hear such stuff and don't know how to control it? Then you are at the right place. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Watch till the end to get full information without skipping. So without further ado, let's get started. In this video, first we'll discuss the places where this generation spends its money. Generation Z adults. Individuals who are between 18 and 25 years old prove to be better financially civilized than any prior generation were in their period, according to the 2022 Investopedia Financial Literacy Survey. But they still have the maximum to realize. More than half of Gen Z adults are already invested, with 26% of that group financed in the stock market. Yet, only 1 in 4 sense that they comprehend the stock market nicely enough to clarify how it functions to a pal. In all of the monetary ideas, they feel greatly optimistic about spending and saving, though 54% of Gen Z holds some kind of venture. Only 1 in 3 feel sure that they can justify how the stock market functions to a companion. About a quarter of Gen Zers in our questionnaire keep cryptocurrencies and stocks, and 1 in 10 own NFTs. Though Gen Z is the most hopeful about expanding and conserving, nearly 1/3 sense that they have just a novice's proficiency in monetary supervision basics like paying taxes and borrowing, managing debt. Gen Z, who have earnings of more than $50,000, are more inclined to be convinced in their economic understanding than those who are giving rise to less than $50,000. 44% of Gen Z who are not capitalizing say it's because they don't understand where to commence. 23-year-old monetary consultant Zakaria Scaffer, whose firm Ascent Personnel Finance specializes in furnishing data for millennial and Gen Z crypto investors, puts it, they understand lots of stuff about finance loosely, but they don't realize a lot of things deeply. Hold Megan Rienzo, for example, the 20-year-old Siena College sophomore, who is on their way to receiving a degree in finance, maintains a detailed track of her spending and preservations by employing a smartphone application. Over her finance lessons, she has understood how to price stocks and feels hard about financing but finds it too complicated for where she presently is financially to begin. In short, the economic pictures for Gen Zers older than 18 is a steady in discrepancy. Finding their financial footing. It takes an extremely self-aware era to realize what they don't understand, and fellows of Gen Z who took part in the 2022 Investopedia Financial Literacy Survey, which surveyed 4,000 US adults via an online census, understand that they are solely at the outset of their trip to monetary freedom. Only 46% of Gen Z feel positive about their economic understanding, for example, which is a lower proportion than baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials. Part of the justification could be that in 2022, there are numerous places for people to absorb information. Think YouTube, podcasts, and TikTok an improvement to conventional news stories. There is so much data accessible that it's tougher to know what to be for, Rienzo said. Gen Z doesn't require enthusiasm when it comes to spending and conservation. Nonetheless, 45% of those surveyed stated to have gained advice without spending, while 42% declared a similar one about preserving. Scaffer remarks that the serious spending and saving patterns of Gen Z and his prospects precisely can be associated with them gazing at their parents' efforts with mortgages, cards, and different debt. Some clients, Scheffer said, believe the pressure to recoup due to the debt they encounter from student debts. Jack Rosenthal was initially acquainted with investing when he was 8 years old, and his grandfather arranged an investment portfolio for him. In high school, he got onto launch the Young Investors Club LLC, a reserve planned for teens to capitalize in stock market that now nearly has 100 members and more than $100,000 aid under management. He's also the writer of numerous books, each of which fulfills a how-to-do investment for teens. He's 19 years aged. Rosenthal is the absolute personification of Gen Z's excitement for capitalizing. 54% of Gen Z holds some sort of enterprise, according to Investopedia's study, varying from mutual funds and exchange-traded accounts to cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens. Also, everyone appears to be getting in on the strategy in some shape or structure. 48% of Gen Z women in our questionnaire handled undertakings, versus 60% of Gen Z men, for example, and in public, 45% of those receiving less than $50,000 per year are capitalizing, correlated to 73% of those earning additional than $50,000. Because of social media, Gen Z learns better about capitalizing at their period than any other prior age, Rosenthal said. He also points out that modifications in the regulatory setting, such as authorizing teenagers to possess parentally supervised accounts, have unlocked the entrance to the stock market. Arising monetary technologies are especially popular with Gen Z. About a section of Gen Z investors hold both cryptocurrencies and stocks, and 1 in 10 own NFTs. Men own personal cryptocurrencies and NFTs at a price that almost makes twice as much as that of women. But despite their total interest in this demand, Gen Z acknowledges cryptocurrency in person is recent on their list of economic information. That's a formula for difficulty according to Scaffier. You hear about people making cash in crypto and NFTs and think optimistic and want to get on for it, Scaffier explained, and before you understand it, you've put up with excessively much danger and are overextended. Watch and learn. Gen Z is the primary age to evolve with smartphones and social media as aspects of daily life. They appeared of age with YouTube, Facebook, and the iPhone, and today, the inexperienced community devors nearly 6.5 hours on their smartphones per day. But Gen Z isn't just peeping for entertainment, they're glancing for advice. According to Digital School Incorporation, Pearson, YouTube, and video in common are Gen Z's wanted to learn outlets, rating second only to teachers as a learning tool. According to Investopedia's survey, Gen Z is the greatest video-forward age when it appears to understand subjective finance personally. YouTube is the extensively popular basis for absorbing finance-related data at 45%, attended by conversations with friends and family, internet search, TikTok, and financial data sites. The transculent quantity of money-related guidance on social media, from self-proclaimed finance professionals on TikTok to Reddit discussions like Wall Street bets, makes proper vetting a daunting possibility. Subsequently, there is no credential regulation for what one does schedules to say on Instagram or any additional social platform. The temperaments and alluresome of the people on these programs make it suspectable to ignore that subjective finance is indeed private, Scaffier announced. Yet, there is no denying that video and social media have democratized admission to economic data. What used to be an insufficient aid reserved for solely those prosperous enough to spend it is now, thanks to digital media and substantial resources for all. And that way, it shows up responsibility nonetheless, such as performing your analysis before putting up with investment guidance and accomplishing a background inspection based on providing the data. Cause for concern. When asked about their financial knowledge, Gen Z is particularly anxious about taxes. Reimbursing taxes is their second largest responsibility and the number one ability they would love to acquire, according to Investopedia's poll. The other big problems for Gen Z are recouping, borrowing, and organizing debt. The financial behavior of Gen Z can be tracked in part to the international COVID-19 pandemic. Units of this era were among the most impacted, according to research performed by the ADP Research Institute. 78% of Gen Zers originate their confidential existences were involved, while 39% say they lost their employment, were furloughed, or encountered an interim layoff. Below, take a nicer peek at Gen Z's largest interests. Taxes. The poorer the earnings, the 2022 Investopedia Financial Literacy Survey shows, the better attention Gen Zers have to learn about taxes. 37% of Gen Zers who earn less than $50,000 illustrated how to do my taxes, as the ability that greatly want to learn, versus 30% of those earning more than $50,000. One component that has been implied as a feasible justification for Gen Z's emphasis on taxes is a widespread belief that the Social Security net will clear out. Nearly 1/5 of the nation says it's not at all inclined that Social Security will be accessible to them when they abdicate, and 43% say that they can visualize a time when Social Security no longer exists. The next factor, according to Scaffier, could be that amid the gig frugality, there are additional self-employed or entrepreneurial-minded Gen Zers needing to commence their jobs, which can establish difficult tax strategies. Debt. Those of Gen Z who make smaller than $50,000 yearly are more nervous about recouping and enhancing their credit achievement than those giving rise to more than $50,000. And this data fits the fact of debt younger adults handle today. In 2020, both millennials and Gen Z saw tremendous across-the-board debt development, with Gen Z glimpsing the hugest expansion across the mortgage and subjective loan debt, particularly according to Experian's Consumer Debt Study. Investing and managing risk. Even though more than half of Gen Z is already financed in the stock market, investing and organizing danger are among their tiniest understood facets of finance. 32% of Gen Z cite being worried about failing capital as collapsing them back from subsidizing, for example, while 22% of those who are not empowered say it's because they don't back on the market. Rosenthal, the teen investing coach, indicates that the suspicion of threat is socioeconomic, more particularly stock market volatility over the preceding decade arising from such staff as the WOG of commercial investing. The war on anxiety and digital disturbance have made investing alarming for some of Gen Z. Massive swings in the stock market create anxiety, and that's the sole demand this period has understood, Rosenthal announced. If anxiety isn't keeping them from financing, it's unrest. The outbreak of economic commodities and assistance intended for facilitating the investment procedure for young investors has rather made it more complicated. 44% of Gen Z who are not capitalizing explain it's because they don't understand where to initiate, giving rise to being the extensively prominent explanation for living on the sidelines. Also, 40% of Gen Z crypto investors say they don't comprehend crypto. Or, as Rian lays it, I realize that Bitcoin is an aspect, but I'm not confident what sort of stuff exactly. What does Generation Z need? Overall, Gen Z is far forward from where prior ages were at their duration when it appears to be financial literacy. If anything still, they may be striding too soon and too greatly on their own. According to Scaffier, the prosperity of data accessibility can steer an erroneous feeling of safety. You can discover anything you need about an economic proposal in Google, but Google can't give you a subjective financial plan, he said. My guidance would be to calm down, figure out where you stand, and prepare to help to develop a strategy for where you expect to go. Methodology. The 2022 Investopedia Financial Literacy Survey quantifies U.S. adults' awareness of their monetary literacy at the generational status. The poll was fielded via an opt-in online self-administered census between January 27 through February 7, 2022 to 4,000 U.S. adults, 1,000 each, of which existed from the subsequent generations: Generation Z, Millennials, Generation X, and Baby Boomers. Allowances and data weighting occurred employed to assure race or nationality, gender, regional, and revenue articulation among the full and within each age. Gen Z or overspending. A study by Everfee establishes that 10% of Gen Zers purchase stuff they can't pay for, and 4 in 10 don't halt wasting when aids are insufficient. Staggeringly elevated debt and an absence of economic teaching both contribute to this latter Gen Z financial stressor, overspending paired with undersaving. 1/3 of Gen Zers noted feeling stressed about impoverished wasting patterns. The spending paired with gaining debt rapidly correlates to a scarcity of savings. Nearly 20% are not settling anywhere towards their conservations each month. This financial stress influences laborers' productivity and boosts healthcare expenses, harming both laborers and employers. Financial fitness strategies like Best Money Moves can assist. Best Money Moves is portable, gamified, and easy to use with a priority on financial literacy, and available tools that are excellent for Gen Z. It gives logical and impartial assistance so workers can give rise to smarter financial determinations and govern the debt they retain. Gen Z is nearly as apprehensive about spending on healthcare as they are about student loans. 1/4 of our questionnaire respondents tell that student loans are the largest financial stressor. Deeming that several members of Gen Z are, however, in college, it creates a sense that student loans are prime of mind. Interestingly, though, the next enormous stressor among this faction is spending on healthcare. Nearly 20% of Gen Z alleges healthcare expenses as their number one economic concern. This substantiates research accomplished by the American Psychology Association that establishes that Gen Z is 1.2 times as worried about health-related suspicions as grown-ups across the board. A bunch of their health suspicions are inclined over their mental fitness because the exact study establishes that units of Gen Z are considerably more inclined to document their mental fitness as reasonable or even low compared to last generations. Luckily, parts of Gen Z are furthermore more inclined to obtain therapy from a mental health professional, but that assistance doesn't come economical. On typical, treatment costs approximately $75 to $150 per 45 minutes round. As an outcome, Gen Z is imprisoned in a series of stress. Stress develops health crises that require medical remedies, but spending on that medical healing only results in additional stress. Members of Gen Z are anxious about being eligible to cover ordinary expenses like their morning coffee and transportation to work. Despite being the newest generation evaluated in Bankrate's study, Those belonging to Gen Z have a percentage of money-related anxiety. Young adults aged 18 to 22 are concerned about jobs and wrapping everyday expenditures like food and travel. As college expenses proceed to surge, it's no surprise that these monetary problems are also starting to plummet on the shoulders of Gen Z components. More than a quarter of respondents think about paying for either their own or a household member's schooling. The above-mentioned points were the reasons why this Gen Z is also so worried regarding finance. We need to be careful about where we spend and how much we spend. Hit the like button and subscribe for more such videos.